Go for it. You level up and you get better with every big decision you take forward, and get help. You don't have to do it alone. Everyone has support around them to help move them forward. So I think that's the most important thing.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Andrea Loubier. Previously, episode 299 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 10 months, 6 days, 19 hours, and 45 minutes since we last recorded our conversation.
I always wanted to pursue entrepreneurship, growing up, and I had my run at the corporate world. It was just not what I really wanted to do. So I kind of came to meeting two Danish guys, and we started a tech company called Mailbird, which we do email, and we built it from a tiny little island in Southeast Asia.
That was then. This is now. How are you doing, Andrea?
Wow, it's been a long time, yeah? I am doing fantastic. Very, very, very good.
Well, it is a great pleasure to reconnect with you. When we last spoke, Mailbird was one of your focus. Tell us, what's the update on that?
Ooh, so many things. Wow. In 2 years, yeah. So much happens in 1 week, even 1 day. But yeah, so since 2 years ago, since we last talked, Mailbird has had quite a few transformations, which has been very exciting for us and the team and the business and the market that we're serving. And so one of these big shifts has been our new focal point on building a healthy relationship with our email inboxes, specifically now for teams and businesses. So that's super exciting for us, as we always, building a product for individual consumers, which was awesome. But then we did start to see a few customers come through the door that were, these businesses, these small to medium-sized businesses. So we're like, this is interesting. Maybe this is an untapped market, an untapped, opportunity for us. So we've really been, just recently in the last year, we've been investing a lot of resources and, R&D in building a great collaborative, seamless email experience for businesses and teams now with Mailbird. So that's super cool.
How have you now built relationships with these small businesses? Because building relationships is definitely a strength when we last spoke.
Yes.
But I'm guessing that was like individual to individuals doing what you needed to do to get the business up and running and to stay going. How is it now? Especially, how is your communication now that you're speaking with these SMEs?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm still like a firm believer in the fact that, in order to do anything in life or to grow or to learn, that you have to build relationships. And that is kind of the core of, I think, almost any business these days. And so what that means, and especially for Mailbird and how we approach, customers now, before we were talking to consumers, a lot of that stuff we could easily automate. And I actually would personally get on the call with individual consumers, especially in the early days, just to talk to them and say, hey, what's going on? Tell me about, what your experience is like with Mailbird, and just engaging in those types of conversations on a regular basis with them. Then we had a support team. So we started building a support and customer happiness team, and they started having those conversations with our individual consumers. Today, now that we're starting to talk to more businesses, it's a little different. So a lot of times when we are engaging in conversations with businesses, it's usually businesses that have already discovered us and have an intent to, use Mailbird for their team, for their people. And when they have that interest, usually I always will follow up with an initial phone call. Like, I always start with a phone call, because I'm not going to be able to build that relationship with someone simply over, asynchronous communication, whether that be via chat or via email alone. So I always like to get on a call with them. And this whole concept of building relationships just basically starts with, first of all, you're not selling to a business, you're selling to people. It's a person or a team of people that you are speaking with, and they have certain needs and requirements specifically for their business. And when we talk to them, it's so important that the first thing we ever do before we even talk about Mailbird is tell us about you. Who are you as a business? Tell us about your team. Tell us about what your email needs are. And then from there, we have that conversation. we can take a much more effective conversation moving forward. And, we never like to take the approach of pressuring businesses or pulling them to buy. We state the facts. We say, these are, what we have to offer you guys, and, have a think about it. And a lot of times they come back and they say, okay, we're ready to transition over. So yeah, it's again dealing with people. And I think a lot of times in business, we forget that. So similar with Mailbird, we've been very customer centric, and I think many of our customers can vouch for that. They probably will say, wow, you guys actually have a great support team helping us, where most companies, for tools that we use on a daily basis, you will never hear the light of a customer on the support agent on the other end. So I think we're pretty proud of that in terms of how we build relationships now with talking to businesses now for Mailbird.
It's interesting to see how your history has impacted what the business is like. Of course, there's the team there, and I'm not familiar with the team as I am with you, so I'm pointing to you now and what I've seen you do from the perspective of you were born in France, right? You are half
Correct.
American, half Filipino, and then you relocated for a bit. You lived in Nairobi, Kenya, and of course there's the American side of things, right?
Right.
And now, like, has that impacted you tremendously and how you are able to connect with people?
Absolutely. I think that's probably one of the biggest advantages I've had growing up with such an international background, and not just, from my parents being from two different cultures, but in the fact that I've grown up in so many other third cultures. And I think the one thing I've noticed, because I've met a lot of people that have had this similar upbringing, it's becoming more and more common. Definitively, like, these people have a certain trait, which is the ability to adapt in many different situations and connect with people no matter what, the circumstances are. So I think that's pretty interesting and cool about, when you grow up in these different cultures. So I think that's important. I think, yeah, I feel very, advantageous in the fact that I've had that upbringing. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, you're special. You're very unique, and that helps tremendously. I think it's something that is not measured. However, if looked upon, the value can be seen. So Mailbird is probably around 7 years, yeah, today at the time of our
Yeah.
recording, is it?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's gone by really fast. I can't
Wow.
believe it. I feel like we just started, we just launched it almost April 1st, which was April Fool's Day. Then we said, no, we're not going to do that. We'll do it on April 2nd.
Oh, that's so cool. When I launched my podcast, I kept procrastinating and I launched on March 31st because I was like, okay, I'm not going to do April 1st.
See, you're in the same boat. Exactly. There's little things that you oversee when you're like so knee deep, and running the business and building it up and growing your team. So it's always good times.
No, you were working so hard. I think it's because you were working so hard and being so focused that TV was nowhere, or just a little, right? Just a sprinkle of TV was in your life. I mean,
Wow,
and
yeah.
then the exercise part was something that fueled you, it seemed, right? So you were running and there was yoga. What does that look like now?
Yeah, like for sure, when I decided to pursue, the dream of starting my own company with my brilliant partners, I didn't understand this concept of work-life balance. I didn't understand, hey, like you can actually take ownership of your life and live a really balanced life. So this whole concept of balancing your health and prioritizing your health even alongside the work that you do and love was very, very important. And yeah, so before I moved to Bali, I was working 9 to 5, and then that's it. But the way I choose to live my life today, I make sure that I focus on balance. I'm sure many people have experienced, burnout at some point or another in their lives with work. And if you haven't, I hope you never do, because it's not
Hmm,
very fun.
as well.
But it's when you lose the ability to say, okay, that's enough, and I need to take a break. So that's something I'm balancing more and more now. And part of that means doing the things that I love when I'm not sitting down, focused and productive and working, and just keeping a very healthy mindset. Of course, like as you get older too, it's like, yeah, your health is very, very important. So I think that's a good balance to have. I'm also diabetic, so that's another challenge. It's a full-time job on its own. So being the CEO of a company and being diabetic, so managing these two pretty big, pivotal, and influential things in my life are quite critical and important to have that balance.
Are you type 1 or type 2?
I'm type 1. Yeah.
Okay. That just puts things in another spin as to who you've been from a child, right?
Right. Yeah.
Balancing life and being who you are. That's just absolutely amazing. However, you love spicy food. How's that been going? In Trinidad, we have something called the scorpion pepper. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. That sounds intriguing. Okay. Okay.
And she's one of the few people who would say that pepper sounds intriguing.
Yeah, I think it's just growing up. Again, it's that, multicultural experience. Like I lived in Thailand as an example for 2 years growing up as well. And so there, obviously, you're exposed as a child to a lot of spicy food. And so my father loved it, so I kind of followed suit. I got those genes.
That's good.
Definitely am addicted to spicy stuff. Yeah.
Andrea, it's a great pleasure to have this opportunity to have this conversation with you and to see Mailbird do what it's done. I mean, PC World has said it's one of the best productivity tools for business persons. IT World Best Email Client for Windows. Microsoft nominated this tech startup as Startup of the Day. To see the growth from then to now of someone who has remained focused and has stuck to their guns to be what they want it to be, it's really great. And sometimes we don't have time to look back and see it, but as your podcast accountability partner, I'm just really proud of all you all have accomplished at Mailbird. So thank you for that. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Oh, just basically, go for it. Like, think about it. If you think about it too long, you may never do it. You'll find all the reasons not to do something. Even if it's like, okay, you did it, you went for it, you started your business. Like, okay, well, what's the next, opportunity, and what's the next challenge, and what are the fears around that? Like, not being afraid and just going for it and being okay with potentially that failing and learning from it. You level up and you get better with every new venture that you take forward and any big decision you take forward. So I think that's how you benefit, and get help. You can never do it alone. Always get help. I think that's the biggest thing I want to share with people after the last 3 years. You don't have to do it alone. Everyone has support around them to help move them forward. So I think that's the most important thing.
Love it, love it, love it. Andrea Loubier, again, thank you, my friend, for being on what is inspired by 12-minute convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.